No
Very
worries.
good.
Vishwas, thanks for having us on.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure to have you all here in my podcast series. I was always seeing your blogs, Manpreet, and also Tom Harris. Thanks for Tina Mary for giving an very elongated introduction in my podcast about you. I think probably it covered almost of the podcast which I recorded was completely filled with you. Somehow I edited and I gave it to the world. And thank you so much for influencing such kind to Tina and to the other folks in the community. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, it's our honor and pleasure.
Yeah.
I just want to explain why Manpreet and I insisted on being together.
Yes.
Um, I'm her dad. I know you can tell that I'm her dad, but I am her dad, and she's my daughter. And so we try to go everywhere we can together.
Sure,
Now
sure.
we adopted one another a while back, and in fact, I'm even her parents regard me as the other parent.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thom, Ives, and Manpreet Budhraja for being in my podcast. It gives me an immense pleasure to welcome you both to my podcast series. And let me just start with the questions then.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know there's a huge story behind the foundation of integrated ML and AI. That's for sure at the end of the day. Because when I learned about you, yes, you are a kind of a person whom I really wanted to understand more about. Because starting and not just as a blog for the community, then giving a mentorship, that's a whole new different story. But I just want to ask you this one question: how far is the journey of AI today as an intuitive understanding of what human beings have done by using this technology? How far are we?
Oh, in my feeling, I like I enjoy likening it to the electrical age. Um, I think we're very early. I think it would be. It's hard to equate it exactly, of course, but and it's just an analogy. It's not an exact parallel alignment, but it's that discovery, starting to realize how dangerous it can be, how helpful it can be, getting the public's thinking around it correct, because I think um, a lot of AI understanding by the public is skewed by dramatized situations from Hollywood and maybe even Bollywood. I don't know, but we're still at the beginning, and I think the public's just starting to begin to appreciate the power that we can have if we have clean data and if we use it well. But because of the way we've been collecting data without an AI mindset, the way we've been collecting that data over the past several decades doesn't make our current work very seamless or easy. So there's still a lot of cleaning and formatting work we have to do to get things done. Even just good visualization requires a lot of careful work, and is that front's being led by some very clever people with deep thinking. But um, and in fact, Vishwas, we're still seeing terminology fluctuations. And what do people mean when they say data science, AI, machine learning? I think it's starting to settle down. I think the meanings are starting to align well as we all talk to one another, but there's still some dirty terminology here and there when we speak to one another. And then again, things are just growing so fast. You have to think about what you're going to learn because you can't learn it all. And even if you enter one specific area, like I determined to do better in my current professional role, it behooved me to start studying transformers and learning those. But even as I look at the transformer space, I can't learn it all. I've got to be very careful what I choose to learn and what I choose to apply. And so it's very important. Like it wasn't, I knew it wouldn't be long. Manpreet has been one of my best helpers to come up to speed on natural language processing and transformers. And but so also someone of the caliber of Dennis Rothman. He's already become a dear friend. He's helping me a lot. My son Robert Jane with Pack Publishing gave me an early release copy of Dennis's book, and I said I promise I will read it carefully and send every error I find directly to Dennis. And Dennis has already taken me under his wing and is helping me come up to speed with transformers, and he's even committed to helping me with my current problem to think through it so I don't waste too much time. But what am I trying to say with all this? What Manpreet and I are finding, and the reason we've just hooked onto each other, is we're finding we can grow so much better and help AI be better for mankind if we have a more together attitude. And that's really what defines integrated machine learning and AI, our family that we call integrated, the integrated family.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear Manpreet's thoughts on the same, though.
No, Manpreet, you can give your thoughts for this.
Well, earlier data was there, but it was structured and limited to people. So many people did not knew about this. But with the advancement of technology and computational techniques coming into picture, the data increased and was used by multiple people for different purposes, and now it's called the big data. And we are still using things and cleaning out stuff so that we get the appropriate data. So yeah, data was everywhere every time with us also when we were in school to study how we performed last time in marks, what marks we had, and now what marks we are having in this term. Our parents used to compare it. So data was there every time, but now people are realizing the importance of data, I guess, to get it more structured, clean, open sourcing, a lot of data. And yeah, that's it from my end.
Yeah, when you told about how we are still using the terminologies here and there and not having a brief idea of what these terminology is, Thom Ives made a huge impact on that, because yes, even a small person who is just there in the actual community today, who has just been the beginner today, is just knowing lot of terminologies that I feel okay, he should be an experienced machine learning engineer. That's for sure. That's what makes the community. Community has to build in a force in such a way that we need to build the exact science behind it without creating a nonsense of those terminologies. And thank you for that answer. I just wanted to ask you this one question. There are a lot of technologies that have come up, computer vision, NLP. That's what you told all about with the transformer. I think Dennis Rothman will be there for sure in a probably in the next series. I'll get Dennis Rothman for sure. I just wanted to ask you this one question. What's the canonical problem statements that is still yet to be solved in the world of data science? Anything, let it be computer vision, let it be deep learning. What's that canonical problem that is still need to be solved at the end of the day?
Boy, I was just in chapter 11 of Dennis's book today that's not been released. And he was true to Dennis's form. He was presenting challenges. He was showing the limits of transformers and NLP with transformers. And it's funny that you would ask that. I was thinking about canonical type limits. And I think transformers will be significant for a while moving forward. But you know how we go, I'm going to try to give an analogy. And by the way, 20 years from now, someone could think back about what I'm about to say and say, oh, that was so wrong, but I'm just trying here. And it strikes me that we're going to eventually begin to see transformers working in ensemble. Like we use a weak decision tree in a random forest, or we use smaller decision pieces in an ensemble method like AdaBoost and XGBoost. I think we're going to begin to see transformers used in ensembles to help one another with aspects. However, it could be that we find some breakthroughs that allow us to just use bigger self-attention mechanisms too, so that we don't use multi-heads, we use bigger single heads. but we don't know yet. It could be that our current understanding is wrong. We might find that, oh no, the multi-head was actually not just easier to train, it was better for these reasons. We just needed to tack this new device onto the end of them. We just don't know yet. But what we see, Vishwash, and I hope this is actually helping answer your question, it, is the hardware helping? Yeah, the hardware advancements are helping. When quantum computing becomes more available to everyone, will that help? Probably. But I guarantee you, the thing that's really jumping over the hurdles and knocking down the walls and getting around the boundaries is, has, and always will be human ingenuity. They're beginning to think about the math at a higher conceptual level. And as it says in the famous recent movie, Hidden Figures, which I hope everyone will watch, it's basically a historical music movie about some incredibly smart women during the space age, or the launch of the space age. They learned to think beyond the math. They learned to think beyond the complexity of the machinery they were beginning to run. We need to keep pushing the envelope but that comes by really understanding the concepts well. And as we collect these concepts from both a collection of the brilliance that we have in our past and add it together, integrate it together, we just find these increasingly brilliant solutions. I'd love to hear Manpreet's answer.
Yeah, I would love to ask Manpreet this one question, because you have seen Thom as one of the biggest personalities in data science, according to you now. So now I just want to ask you this one intuitive understanding: is data science just built with ideas or else with the personalities? What is that all about? Is just a person
Uh,
who is good with the concepts just going to build it, or else is the ideas that's going to revolutionize this technology? What is that all about? That's what I really wanted to ask.
um, Answering to the previous question of yours first about
Yeah.
the idea, I feel that um, data is there abundantly, but people don't know how to use it. So this is one thing that we need to address, and this is one of the challenges that we would face, I feel, especially in NLP. There are a lot of models getting built, but it's mainly on English or German or Chinese that you would find that have a lot of data available. But working these same models on low resource languages and data would be a challenge to see how would it work. And there has been a lot of study and debates going on that NLP is taking the techniques from computer vision or copying techniques from computer vision. So it would be a good challenge to see how these both techniques collaborating with together and bringing out good things for the community. And now coming to your second question about um, data science, I feel when we were having a session last Saturday, we discussed how important it is to be visible, but it's also important how your visibility makes a difference in the community. So if you know what you are teaching to community, and then you would revise that stuff for yourself, so it in turns help you to grow yourself and the community, and it makes a difference. So what Abdul and Thom said that day is how you present your own ideas. There's plenty of people writing on the same topic, but when I interviewed Siddha, she told me that once the first blog she wrote just got one like, and now she wrote a book on practical deep learning practices on computer vision, and that was her journey from writing a book to a blog to uh, O'Reilly book. And she told that when you are writing a post, it's your perspective to see things and no one else would have seen. And similarly, Abdul and Thom told that they, like, when we revisit the concepts again and again, we see a new perspective to that things, and that's how it makes a whole difference when you are contributing to things on community, and that makes your presence, and that's your data science journey, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
that gives a very bright side of what data science is all about. Uh, Not just being data scientist, grabbing all the money which is there in the field for the research. It's not about that. It's also about how you are giving the community presence, how you are actually giving your concepts right to the world. That actually really matters. Thank you, Tom. I think I missed it, and I think thank you for briefing it in my podcast, by the way, because
I
I
just
have
got
my
to
exam.
say,
Yes.
I just got to say real quick, I'm having immense fatherly pride at Manpreet's last answer. And but I would think I know Manpreet and I both feel this way. We don't see ourselves as leading data scientists in the community. We just see ourselves as passionate data scientists in the community that are excited about what's going on. We're honored to be part of a community that wants to give back to each other. We're excited about what we're learning each day, and sometimes it's just very hard. It can bring us to our intellectual knees and cause us to crumble, but we rest, we recover, and we get back at it, and we go, oh, I just needed to rest. Now I can get past this problem, and it's challenging. And then, but then there's your life too, and
Yeah.
so we're just trying to, our data science family, we help each other with the data science, but we find that to help each other be the best data scientists, we got to help each other in other ways too. And so we've just become a family trying to be more together.
Yeah, and also addressing to a point that we don't feel jealous of each other, but we try to support each other, because initially when people start, they feel jealous that he's getting this much likes and he's getting this much support from people, but we are a family where we are trying to learn everything from each other. Like Giovanna helps a lot with soft skills. She's the best person to go and learn soft skills. Thom, you can call, message anytime for mentorship. He's there, and we have mentorship talks where we just learn from everyone, from a beginner, he has his own perspective, to an expert sharing his industrial experience, and that's really a good learning. So it's all about um, how you all incorporate with each other and share your feelings with each other on the topic.
You know, Vishwash, I just want to share. Um, I was asking Manpreet's advice along the way as I got more and more mentoring requests. And I didn't want to say no to anyone, but I didn't want to get overwhelmed where I couldn't do my daily work also. And I was pretty sure she would share the ideas she did, but then it got down to practical details. And Manpreet always has great ideas along with the rest of our steward team. But it was very interesting, Vishwas, from the very first group call that we had. I said, please be brave, ask your question in front of everyone, and I want you to see what happens. And I was pretty sure I knew what would happen, but I was even shocked at how good it was. I said, here's my answer, but I think you could be better helped if we hear from some others also. And the first young woman that asked a question, if I could put her countenance on a meter, when I gave my answer, it was about here. And as she continued to see how everybody wanted to help her, her countenance turned to glowing, max glowing. She was so blessed and helped. But that wasn't because she heard from me. It was because she saw how much everybody wanted to help her with her question. And that is the seed that our family has grown from. We continue to be that way. We continue to just try to be aware. What's our greatest need right now? How can we help each other with it?
Yeah, I felt so blessed today because tomorrow is my lab exam. So I was preparing a lot, and I felt so blessed because Of course, I'm hearing from Thom, Ives, and Manpreet Budhraja. Manpreet, I used to follow your AIM learning for quite a while now. It's been quite a while now, and I still remember the hiss sound which your microphone gives. But at the end of the day, everything that you give is something fantabulous that I really want to learn something more about NLP. That's what my every time that I see your AIM learning, I feel the same way. Tom, thanks for your post, which actually is very enriching with knowledge. And let's just move on. It's more about the community, and let's just go on. Tom, I just wanted to ask you this one question where you know nobody has completely analyzed what a neural network is. It's still a burning box filled with black boxes. At the end of the day, it's just black boxes where the data goes in, it gets processed and comes out. I just want you to give me that understanding of what is an intelligence all about. I think probably your experience in data science might help us in analyzing what is intelligence today.
So I want to make sure I understand your question. Are you asking me to kind of wax philosophically on what a neural network is, or
Both.
okay,
In
sure,
a technical and a philosophical way, science meeting
yes,
conspiracy kind of a thing.
sure. Let's start with the technical. And Manpreet, I want you to interrupt me if you want to interject something as I talk.
Yes.
So what's really now, when people come to me, if they said, hey, I want to get really good at deep learning, I would say, okay, what's your programming language of choice? And by the way, I don't care what they would say. It could be Python, R, Julia, whatever. I just say, what is your, okay. And then I say, well, how good are you at that language? And I said, well, I'm just starting to learn it. And I'd say, okay, come back to me when you feel like you're at a beginner intermediate level, where you could really feel like you could code most anything up, but it might be a little hard. Come back to me at that point. Okay, I've done that. So, okay, are you really good with linear regression yet? Like, can you do linear regression? Can you use lasso and ridge? Do you know how to scale your parameters, clean your parameters? Do you know the pipeline of supervised machine learning? Do you know how to do metrics on your linear regression? And then they say, no, I say, okay, go get good at that. And you can check my blog post out on that too, but don't just look at my blog posts, go read some others too. I want you to get well-rounded with it, because I haven't even covered everything on that. And they come back to me and say, okay, I've done it. And said, now, were you able to use gradient descent? Yes, okay, great. Did you happen to
But
go
like
ahead and,
asking you one thing, how many actually come back to you?
oh,
Yes, that's
this is, we're talking about Ta right now, okay? And Ta is my
But
mythical.
yeah, because here I believe that people look for an immediate solution. Okay, you would tell them do this course, but no one would tell them structured. And when you try to tell them structured answers, they would never come back. That is what I feel like. Out of 10, only 2 people would come back.
However, thanks to the helpful deep learning memes, I think people are starting to realize, oh, if I want to be good at deep learning, I got to be good at the basics. So then I'd say, hey, what about logistic regression? Oh, okay, I'll go learn that. Said, okay. They come back and said, just go play with a sigmoid function, a tanh function, and a ReLU function. Just go play with those. And then they'd come back and say, okay, that was easy. And I said, exactly, you're gaining skills. Now, neural networks are just those things over and over and over again. And we're just creating this network of those things. And then they would be, oh, you're right. Each neuron's really taking in linear regression and then doing logistic regression. But figuratively speaking, because the ReLU kind of breaks that, but it's super powerful. And now, because you see why you needed to learn, yeah, because of the softmax and when I do classification. Do you see why I had you do still ReLU and linear? Yeah, because sometimes you use neural networks for regression too, exactly, for continuous things. Now, do you really think
Yeah,
it's such a, oh,
like
going ahead.
Also adding here that I'm from integrated maths background and I never valued it until I went for my thesis, and I was told to explain this back propagation where that day we were discussing when Abdul told, okay, people don't understand the simple concepts of how back propagation works. And when I just saw the algorithm, how it works, it was so pretty simple of using partial differentiations. And for me, it was easy to understand because I did my master's and bachelor's in maths. So that's when I realized that what I had was such a blessing in disguise for me, which I never realized until I went for my thesis. And it just, if you have that picture in your mind that you take this thing and it gets divided in this way, it's very easy for you to visualize and understand what goes inside that. And that's how Thom also tries to do through his blogs and coding. If you see his earlier blogs that I have read, coding from scratch, using pandas and not any library, and building logistic regression and linear regression codes, and they're very good. If someone can visualize that thing, it's very easy to understand thing.
And I'm really glad you interjected that, because I would have said, how well do you know calculus? And they may say, well, I got through derivatives and chain rule. I'd say, perfect. Right now, that's all you need to know. And then they'd say, well, I'd say, what about linear algebra? Well, I got through about this point. I'd say, perfect. You don't have to be a linear algebra expert, but you need to see its power. You need to understand how it relates to space and how columns relate to things. And then once they're there, I can say, okay, now do you see how busy this gets when you start deriving back propagation? It's not, it's easy, but it's difficult. Meaning the individual steps are not hard to understand, but there's so much accounting to discover the pattern that's there and how you can replicate the pattern in the back propagation, how you can replicate the pattern in feed forward, and how linear algebra makes all that more elegant. And once you know how to use NumPy and you're not using a library, you can start to fabricate all this from scratch yourself. And your understanding is way up here conceptually, and it helps you. So is it a bit of a black box? Yes, in that we let it train itself. But is it unexplainable? Absolutely not. And my new big brother's also written a book on explainable AI, Dennis Rothman, Explainable AI. I encourage everyone to buy that and read it. And but now, philosophically, I want to ask you a question, Vishwas, just to help me answer my question.
Yes.
And so, does an airplane fly?
I can't answer that now.
No. Does
Because
an airplane
after
fly? Oh,
yes.
No. Wait. Don't make it complicated. Does an airplane fly?
Yes.
Does it fly like a bird?
No.
But we were inspired by birds. Is the neural network a brain? No. It's nowhere near as complicated or capable. But can it do things faster and better than a brain? Depends on its architecture, but it can. Just like a plane can fly faster than a bird, but it can't do everything a bird can do. And neural networks can do some things better than our brains, but not everything better. We're still their creators. And, but humans have been doing this for a long time. We've been making tools that can do things that we can't do. But once we're controlling those tools, we can do more. And so philosophically, we're copying the brilliance of nature, but not exactly. We're taking it to a different level, but it's like nature, but not exactly. And we're taking advantage of the brilliance we see in nature. So I could keep going on for a long time, but I think that's a first level answer to your question.
Like, also adding to your point, Kenji in his podcast with towards data science, I remember mentioned that how we all are, uh, we are like a random state, in a random state when we start our journey into data science, and when we gradually learn, our gradient descent becomes zero, and how beautifully he manages to tell us how deep learning and AI is related to ourselves, but we don't realize it. And it's so beautifully he tells in the podcast. And that's how we all are, but we don't realize it, I guess.
Yeah, that gives a very nice idea of what neural networks should be. There are scientists who have literally told that we are not building neural networks to behave exactly like a human being. We are just building it to just make our jobs easier, to just be in our comfort zone. That's what always people have been preaching in order to get that right understanding of what's the purpose of neural network is. Of the time, since I did the podcast with Tina Mary, I think probably I've never allowed myself not to follow integrated ML and AI. I read the article called as Being a Data Scientist. I just wanted to ask you this one question. What's the worst and the best part of being a part of this community and being a data scientist, working there as an everyday job which gives you bread and butter at the end of the day? What's the actual best and the worst part of working as a data scientist today?
I think, I mean, I kind of wanted Manpreet to go first, but I'll go first because I think my answer will be short. So as people can see, if they look at my background, I only recently had a title of data scientist, but I've been practicing data science since 1980. We just didn't know to call it that at the time. I was in physics lab, and it was the first time I learned least squares fitting, and I thought it was brilliant. But did I know how to derive it at that time using calculus? No, I was still learning calculus. And when I was learning to model mechanical systems and multi-physical systems with differential equations, did I realize I was doing something intimately close to data science? No, I just thought of it as predicting the performance of a system before I built it. And when we would plot our data, was I thinking about doing data visualization? Yeah, but we weren't calling it that. We were just doing engineering. And then, but even before the term dashboards came out, I was using that as saying we really need to take our data and automate visualizations of it, create dashboards of our key performance indicators. And I wouldn't have even called it that then. I was just saying important things that we want to track. And I was already in love with Python because how much it was helping me in my multi-physical modeling and industry. But when I was in a new role, I was thinking, I really need to take more advantage of how Python can automate everything. And so it was very much like our post in saying, while not always doing it in the wisest way, I was really just trying to make more value from data where I was working constantly and tripping over myself and my poor soft skills and getting back up and trying to do it better next time. But over time, just being willing to say, okay, I'm blind, ignorant, and powerless. But if I will not be arrogant and I can be humble and I can learn from everyone and everything, I think I can grow. And I would say that was probably the beginning of that article. And then later on, when Manpreet and I were enjoying giving everything we could back to the community, we're watching the pulse of the community and we're thinking, where are the pain points? And it started to occur to us, people don't need to have a data science role to be data scientists. They need to stay in love with data science and do the best job they need to do the best job at the best job they can get and practice data science to enhance their duties in that role as much as possible. Well, I look back and I realized, well, that's what I've been doing. And it helped. But I could still learn to do it better if I was honest with others about where I'd learned hard lessons and try to save my younger friends from those hard lessons. So really, from my perspective, that's how that post came to be. But I'm eager to hear, I feel like Manpreet's story in that particular post is the strongest one. And I'm really glad she wrote it. So I'm going to listen to her share her part on that.
Um, I would like to tell it from a perspective of a college student who just passed out, because that's what I am. Just completed my studies in June 2020. Um, I got a role offered as a associate consultant, and then I got this role at Pact um, as a data engineer. And I first consulted Thom that should I take up this role, and he was like, "Are you mad? You should take it. It's the best step towards your journey as a data scientist." But um, the role doesn't actually define what we do. And when we are at college, we feel that building models, using transformer birds, and doing these other stuff is the most important thing a data scientist does. But when you are at a company, you need to check that data gets loaded at time. You need to see the data that you need to visualize and other department needs for themselves is on time. You need to check that the data, it's getting calculated in a proper way, it's getting stored, it doesn't get broken at a point. You need to be very good at these things as well, so that you get data for yourself to work on it. And irrespective, we are called a data engineer. Recently, I started and told one of my teammates that I do want to learn Power BI, because it helps us to also visualize sometimes when we want to do EDA of our data. Why to code so much and see what is happening when your company is using Power BI and it's having easy drag and drop option to learn. And we did some NLP stuff as well, created some models and work. So I feel that it's important what you do and how you learn it, rather than having that picture in mind of being a data scientist title. Because in our blog as well, if you see, Thom started his journey as a mechanical, Abdul was into mechanical, Andrew started his journey into being sports while playing golf. He got an idea. Suzanne works as a data cleaning coat. Her I guess her title is the code. And it's all different. I started off with learning web development, Android development, and when I did my internships, I realized, okay, my interest lies in this area. So it's I guess nothing related to the title we have, but it's related to the quote we associate is as "we do have policy" that Thom has created for it, and it absolutely. So I think he'll explain it more better. The "we do have policy."
Well, and I need to hasten to say, I did not create be, do, have. Someone else came up with it. But when I heard it, it dawned on me, oh, we do fall into that trap as humans. We think, oh, I have to have in order to do, in order to be. And that is a really bad way to go about motivating yourself or thinking about things. No, you need to work on becoming who you want to become, and then you need to start doing what that person would do, and then eventually you will have what that type of person has. If you're waiting to have something, to do something, to be someone, you'll be constantly frustrated and angry, and it's not a good way to go about things. It's not a good mentality. And now, have I ever been guilty of the reverse thinking? Yes. And so why do I write blog posts where I confess that I used to do this really stupid, I used to have this really stupid, immature mentality? Why do I write those? To help people like Manpreet. In fact, one blog post I wrote was mostly because I saw something Manpreet was struggling with, and I realized, wait, I struggled with that. And if Manpreet's struggling with it, I bet a lot of other people are struggling with it. And so I wrote a very self-defacing LinkedIn post to test this about something I did very bad in the past in my career. And it really hit a nerve out in the community. And I went, okay, I got to write on this. And so I turned it into a blog post, which was part of it was the cycles of becoming a good data scientist or a great data scientist, but the other one was the learning plan. And, but, you know, Vishwas, I don't mind telling the community, I've really stepped in it at times. I've really made bad soft skills mistakes in my career, social skills mistakes, teamwork mistakes. I've worked in a silo, which I shouldn't have done. Not stood up for myself when people were being rude, not owned it when people were insulting me and they were right. I've had to learn from all of those hard lessons. I just am trying to make people understand or help people understand, not make them understand. It's okay. We all learn these hard lessons. Just if you can learn from them faster and more humbly, you'll do far better.
Yes, that's for sure. That's for sure. Because we are not humble enough to understand what's our real potentials are sometimes, and we just overthink about it, and we just don't get over ourselves, and we just want that actual a dime of a billion at every given point of time, even though we are not worth of it. Yeah, that's for sure. I just wanted to ask you this one question: is language more good for understanding, or else is it that behavior of the compiler that has made data science what is it today? What is that influence? Is it the language, or else is it the compiler which has been that most influential part in the data science today?
Manpreet, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah,
I
Manpreet,
guess
please.
I've been using Python since I started, so I don't think I'll be the best one to answer.
Fine, fine.
I started off with Python and now it's Python everywhere. But you do have R, but I would say R does have a great visualizations than Python. It's because it can easily get integrated with your Tableau as well. So it's quite good if people know how to use it correctly.
In fact, in my opinion, R is so great because it has R Shiny and you can pull it into Python now. So that's what I'm really excited about. But in an effort to begin to answer your question, let me just give my comical pass to coding, and then please chime in and redirect, ask some other questions to direct me toward what you're looking for. So I like to joke, when I first got to know Manpreet, I had the first trainer. I'm just your big brother. Don't make the mistake of holding me up on a pedestal. I'm just an older kid. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. Just be my friend. And she got bold with me, and it was good because on one of my posts, I had her read it. And let's just face it, I'm just being honest. English is my mother tongue. I've been writing English and technical English for a long time. So I wasn't asking Manpreet to review my writing skills. She was reviewing my content and how clearly I was communicating the message. On this same blog post, Danny Ma did me the honor of giving me some feedback too. Now, I'm not trying to say anything about Danny Ma, but of the two feedbacks, Manpreet's was far more valuable. And it was very concise what she said. And it took me 2 days to figure out what she was getting at and get back in and improve the post. And it was much better because she said it. Now, why did I go into that? I am impressed with the current generation. They're part of a world that's very advanced and changing much faster than where the world was at when I was your age. And so I started life, I love to share this. I started life with a black and white TV with rabbit ear antennas. And it was a big tube, by the way, not a big one, a smaller TV still. And we had a rotary dial telephone, a big yellow pages, because I was in a big city, Dallas, Texas. And I was a spoiled kid intellectually. I had 2 encyclopedia sets, kind of a beginner encyclopedia set, hardbound, and a Britannica encyclopedia set. And I thought the world was quite advanced. And I thought fiberglass was an amazing invention. And yet now you look at someone that is the age I was at then and now, huge advancement. So more comically, what did I start with? The first time I programmed was with Fortran. Now, Vishwas, have you heard of that language?
Yes, I've heard about that language.
Okay.
My teachers
in
used
fact-
to say we used to learn that as our first language, then we used to go for the C because DOS was an invention at that point of time.
Yeah,
cool.
even in our department, still physics people use Fortran in
Fortran.
the company's data.
And in fact, it's kind of fun to know R is built on Fortran. So I learned Fortran. I thought it was great. And I remember the first time my TA did not give me a good grade on one of my programs because I loved to program. This is back in 1980 or 81. I said, why didn't you give me a better grade here? And he said, because you could have leveraged your code from the last assignment and created a function from it and used it in this assignment. I went, okay. So I did that on future assignments. And then one time he's like, what are you doing here? I said, I'm doing what you taught me. And he gave me really high marks for correcting him on correcting me. But then fast forward, I learned BASIC on my own. I learned C on my own. I even learned C++ on my own. Later, because of a brilliant engineer I was working alongside when I was doing micro electromechanical system design, I even learned awk. But then I had to learn how to do charge particle optics, which is a very hard physics-based prediction using what's called not finite element analysis, but boundary element analysis. And or boundary element method, it's where you're only looking at the surface of a structure to get the predictions you need. And it was for electrostatics. And the tool was so new and advanced and being developed on a grant that I had to go sit with the developers to learn how to use it as an end user. And so I was one of their first users. And they had developed their whole, I just worshiped these guys. I thought they were so brilliant. You know, anyone that could take the physics and the math and code from it, I love doing that already myself. So they were saying, I said, hey, you developed this in TCL/TK. Did you like that? And they said, well, yeah, it's okay, but we really wished we'd used Python. Now this is 2000 or right before 2000. I said, wow, I've never heard of that. And I came back to my hometown and in my office, and I just started learning Python with a vengeance. This was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. And I think we were maybe on Python 2.2 or something crazy like that. And I fell in love with it. I felt like a lion let out of its cage to roam the jungle and hunt and, you know, kill things. And I was let loose on how to deal with strings and how to store data in multiple ways. And I just got excited. I think I might be going way outside your original question and have been monologuing too long, but
it's no. You are just on to the point of giving us the brief history of how the compilers and the interpreters were being introduced to you, because we need to know the history behind how our interpreter came. You know, we have trans compilers, cross compilers now. You know, having your experience probably will give us more of an understanding of how compilers and interpreters have developed. Yeah, that's for sure.
But someone I do love to listen to is Linus Torvalds. And I love the affectionate way he talks about C. And I have to confess, I feel the same way about C when he talks about it. Sometimes I miss C, but I can just get work done faster with Python. And it's not, in fact, when I finally get back around to it, I was enjoying learning with my son-in-law how to make new modules for Python from C. But it's not for the faint of heart in the coding sense. But I do love the idea of being able to do machine code and be as close to the machine as possible. But at the conceptual levels we're working, I love the Python community and how it's made sure that when we really need to do hardcore computation, we're not slowed down. And now we have TensorFlow and PyTorch and Hugging Face to help us with
Yeah.
transformers. It's like a playground, but that playground exists not too far above the actual compiler and the machine, but yet it feels like we're way above it.
Yeah.
But then, how do you feel that? Do you feel that the the meaning remains the same, the syntax changes from one language to another? Because I learned C in my school. It had some um, symbols to be added at the end,
Semicolon.
colon to be added at the end. But Python doesn't have. Python focuses on indentation as well. So like it's easier, right? From down the line, it's just the essence you get of a language, but then it's just to implement, and Stack Overflow is at rescue to everyone, I guess.
I love to watch Linus or look at Linus' code because it looks like the way we would write Python, but it's in C. And so because of the way he writes his code, it's gorgeous. He says beautiful, but I call his code gorgeous. Everything's indented carefully and there's a lot of white space, and but he's very meticulous about writing very clear code, so clear that you wouldn't even necessarily need to comment it. And but kind of around to your point, and I think Manpreet probably feels the same. Once you learn once I learned Fortran, I never really took another coding course. Did I buy coding books? Yeah. Did I buy books about a new language syntax? Yeah. What's one of my favorite books I've ever read? The Pragmatic Programmer. In fact, I could take the principles taught in there and abstract them and apply them to other areas of my life. It's so good. I really appreciate David and Andy for writing that book and keeping it alive for 20 years with good revisions. But once you really learn some good programming principles in that first language you learn, even if you didn't learn object-oriented, but you learned how to create functions and separate files and how to bring things together, the world's your oyster. You can learn another language pretty quickly and use it pretty effectively.
Yeah, that's what I too had that journey of learning C++. Thank you, Bijan Istrastrup, and then going back to the data structures, then coming back to the Python as an interpreter. It was something as an more of a journey, which was kind of a romantic journey to the world of the data science, because it was such an honor for me, because there's a new way of programming that people saw when Python got introduced, and now it's a new tool. Of course, loops are slow at the end of the day. It's an interpreter, so loops are slow at the end of the day, but there's a big O, order of log n square, and all these comes into the picture. And I was, when you were saying, I it seems quite similar to my journey into the data science. That's how I also started, with the basic language of C, and then I came in. So, Tom, I just wanted to ask you this one question: where should there be an anonymous person who should be programming some framework out there in the world and just giving out to the world? That's for sure. There are open source communities which are doing that. But I just wanted to ask you this one question: what was life exactly before TensorFlow got open source? I think Manpreet joined her academic journey as a bachelor's in the year of 2015. I think that was the time where TensorFlow got open sourced and it really changed the industry. What was life before TensorFlow? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Oh, so this is an awesome question because I just, even though I'm not at the advanced technological age that you guys are at, back when I was a young man working on my master's and PhD, we were doing some really cool programming in C for robot calibration. And then I was using MATLAB, Simulink, and Axle to help me design and model hybrid electric vehicle power plants. And to kind of get to your question, so of course, MATLAB and Simulink and Axle, they're not free tools. but C was. And it even back then, this was 30 years ago, you could easily find a C library to help you do something very advanced. It might be a little hard to learn to use it, but once you learn to use it and you put your own wrappers around it, you created your own macros to make it easier to interact with, you were running. And creating modular files, I mean, I'm kind of glad I don't have to wait for my programs to compile. It would take a long time. But even back then, we were very at least in the academic community, very modular. One of us created a library, we shared it with everyone else. The code was findable, especially from the national labs, and great tools came out of the national labs. But I think that spirit has just grown and broadened, and my hat is off, and my deepest thanks to Guido van Rosen, because of the way, not only did he create Python, but he created a foundation to keep it growing in a good direction. And I think the community growth is very much attributable to him. And I'm sure R has something similar. I just am not as familiar with it because I'm a Python guy.
Yeah, thanks to him, he gave PEP 8 and PEP 572 standards for the world, where it has made coding much more standardized, and it's like an ASCII code for your programming rules. That's what I really feel about. No, of course, I think Manpreet can add something for these, because I know, because of course we are young folks sitting here in front of Tom, but we are not of the same old stone age of what actually vacuum tube era of deep learning.
Yeah.
I think Manpreet can add on something.
I just remember during the end of December or early start of January, George shared the things we used to do in 90s, and I just asked him about logo. That was the most interesting thing we used to learn at school. There was this one turtle, and you would command it
K-Turtle.
turn right. Yeah, turn right, turn left, and then he said that now you can use it in Python as well. There's one library to use it,
Turtle.
and I found it. Yeah, and it's so good that things got so advanced from our age to now. And nowadays at school you have Python. In our times we used to have this logo, HTML, QBasic, and C to learn and implement things. And now it's compulsory in some schools here in India to have Python at schools, and that's quite cool. And I remember when we were discussing with our professor during thesis, he said that you guys have so much of resources and so much of computation power to run your models and train your models. Earlier, we used to write so long codes of C to train models or build something like this machine translation or question answering system at that time. And yeah, we are at a good age. But now when I see my juniors, I'm like, oh, they are doing much better than me. I have to be updated with a lot of things again.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you feel that same competition, Thom, that um, people younger to you are more knowledgeable and, you know?
He confessed
Um,
it. He
I,
confessed
I'm
it already.
Oh yeah, I'm actually just glad they're willing to teach me. Um, oh, I got a funny story though. I get in this. I'm just insistent on figuring something out, and I can get real pig-headed the way I'm thinking about something. And I wore my poor daughter out a few nights ago, saying, "But in this transformer, where it passes these values over to here, it's not showing it that way in the diagram, but then they're saying this," and I'm just getting so mad because I can't figure it out. And I think Dennis was trying to tell me, Thom, and I was wearing Manpreet out with it because I caused her to doubt everything she had learned. And then I reached out to Dennis. I said, okay, here's my real problem. And it was only in chapter 1 of his book. And he said, Thom, he didn't say it exactly this way, but this is what I finally took away, and which helped me get around my stupid pig-headed understanding, is that I think the Lego pieces of transformers are in smaller pieces than you're imagining. And then once I realized I was being my too rigorous interpretation self, I got over the hump, and then the rest of the book was a joy to read. But I mean, it was already a joy to read. But
Yeah.
by the way, I want to encourage everyone um, regarding transformers. They're hard. The reason they're hard to learn right now is because we don't have a book, and unless you look through the papers in the right order and the right history, it can be really hard to sort out the best order to read those papers to figure out the mechanics. But then there's some people on YouTube that have made these phenomenally good videos to explain those papers, and they even animate the mathematical mechanics, the mathematical operations. And then when you read Dennis's book, it's really clear. So help is coming. And
Yeah, Jay Armour, the way
yeah,
he animated the things that it's going input and coming out.
but yeah, it be patient with yourselves, be gentle. It's funny. It's not that the stuff we do is impossible to understand. It's just that there's a learning curve. There's a learning mountain.
Yeah.
And then once you reach the summit, you look back down and you go, oh, why did I make that so hard? We always feel that way, though, I think.
Also, like it's more of the things that we are learning. Sometimes we overburden ourselves that I will not understand it anyhow, and then you're like, no, this is not clear. But when someone tells us this is this simple, okay, just get it done, and you're like, okay, now we are clear with it.
And Vishwas, this very thing we're talking about now is why the more together works. Because if we're learning to get, by the way, I don't know, I don't think I'm even equal to Manpreet's overall NLP knowledge, but it may be on coding some cool things up based on the concepts. I might be ahead of her. We don't even judge each other that way. We just see, hey, how can we help each other from where we're at? And everybody has their little angle of misunderstanding. So one of the most important things I did when I started learning transformers is I changed my Thursday posts from reinforced learning and said, hey, I really got to learn transformers. So I'm gonna put, not abandoning RL, I'm putting it on the shelf to learn transformers. Also had a motivation for the models that you put inside reinforced learning agents to make them transformers. So I wanted to, and then I knew the transformers would likely help with my current professional role. But first thing I did was starting posting about it and asking, does anyone want to join me on this learning journey? And there were many people that wanted to join. And then Dennis Rothman saw one of my posts and promised something big was coming. And then we finally had the courage to invite Dennis into our learning group, and he accepted. And we found out, hey, he's just a guy like us that likes to do more together. He has a passion to share. And so he instantly became our big brother and a very nice one at that. And he posts as much as anyone in our learning group. And now I have the honor of just, you find errors in the text or the wording. So every time I find one, I copy it and I send it to him on a private message. He passes it on. But we've had some individual conversations, and this more together thing, it really works great. And yeah, it may be that there's a researcher you'd like to make friends with and they never get back to you. Don't judge them. Don't be upset about it. The people that you do join forces with, they'll be good enough. It's you can do more together. That's the key thing we're
Yeah.
trying to say.
But like then adding to your point, when we are at college or undergrads or grad schools, what generally happens that people have that thought that if I talk or discuss this with a person or someone in my group, he would become more better than me, he would be more great than me. And that's where like people like me, when I started LinkedIn, I had this same mentality because we come from what we have seen and grown up. But then you have people, when I started to interact with Ravit, Danima, and I'll tell you the interesting story how I and Thom met was I commented on Terry Singh's post of PyTorch versus TensorFlow, and that's how he sent me a request, and we used to talk about how it's the both things different and used differently, and that's how we started to grow, right? It was so it's like, and I really wish to tell this to all the college students that someday when I can go back and tell them, please don't have this mentality that if you tell someone or share something with someone, they'll grow better than you. You will be the person who will be getting better because you're sharing your learning and you revising and revisiting it. So I hope someday people in college understand it because I faced a lot.
Yeah, that's a great point. We do find that when we take the time to really help another individual understand something better, that's the very thing that helps us understand it better.
Thank you so much for giving me such a wonderful session of GAN, because I don't think anybody would have been this truthful to answering the right answer that is required for making the better data science community. I don't think nobody would have had answered, because thanks to Thom's experience of mentoring and also his experience of seeking job and also introducing to the world this integrated ML and AI. And thanks for Manpreet Budhraja for being his adopted daughter at the end of the day. Yes,
Well,
I
by the way, I just got to add something. All that you see me doing now, I might not have started doing it without Manpreet's encouragement. Not only did I see a lot in her, she saw a lot in me. And I just want to confess to everyone that might be listening, why was I so shy to start being more visual? Um, and forgive my Cajun, but it was because of assholes. I've been hurt by rude, mean people criticizing me for the terminology I was using or the things I was thinking. And I had to learn to work through working with hard people, working with rude people, working with toxic people, and still holding to my convictions and everything. And but it wasn't until the young people that I was helping privately encouraged me, Thom, more people need to hear what you're sharing, that I decided, okay, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to step out. Um, a lot of it's not just Manpreet, but it's a lot Manpreet.
Yeah, it was Tina's post that um, went more viral, and you got to people connecting you for one-to-one mentorships. I remember.
Yeah, I remember being a little surprised when people would write posts about my help. And then
Yeah,
I said, oh, Manpreet, help. I think I need to do this. And she'd say, yeah, and think about doing this too. And but
yeah.
each time we do something to handle the volume, the help is improved also, which has been really reassuring to both of us.
Also,
yeah.
like for the criticism he mentioned, I also faced the same, and that too for a post Thom did on me on being his adopted daughter. I have received very messages criticizing, oh, you're this, you're that. But then when I told him and I interacted with him, he told me that it's how you take the important things and leave the rest, because this is gonna be a long journey where people who are jealous will try to bring you down. So that's how he motivates people, and that's why he is called everyone's father of data science.
I, I'm
Yeah, there's a dean of data science, big data, sorry. Bill Schmarzo will be on my podcast on February 4th, and I'm very honored to have him on this podcast. He also has faced a lot. He has an YouTube series called as Laid Off, and it's an amazing way of giving that proper understanding of what should be your approach in order to get that right mindset in order to work. I think I'm sorry if my eyes is a little sleepy. It's because of my exams which are going on now. I'm very sorry for that. You know, I just wanted to ask you this one question about this big O notation, which is just ruling the world of computing today. It's everywhere. Algorithms have the big O notation. Our hardware is being optimized based on the big O notation, which then algorithm is facing. Forgetting that even our OS is working because of the proper data structures and the file system being managed properly. What's the big deal about the big O notation that we have today, actually, which was existing from the Stone Age of deep learning? What's that all about?
I will try to answer, and I'm happy for Manpreet to augment. Um, I think about big O. I use big O type thinking a lot, but as, not always exactly big O. In other words, I'm always thinking, oh, if I write this way, this has got enough data to where this operation could really slow my whole application down. So I start to think, all right, what is there a better data structure I can use? Can I use parallelization here? So I encourage people to learn Big O and methods and analysis to understand their code. But also, let's say you come across something that's Big O n squared. Well, are you throwing it through NumPy? Are you throwing it through a GPU? Then it's not as big a deal, but you need to always be aware of two things. What is my big O functionality, and what hardware or what level of parallelization will it run through? But you're always trying to do the best thing. Let's say you can do just as good a job with big O of n log n instead of big O of n squared, and yet you still have this parallelization with a GPU. Or you still want to go for the n log n just for good discipline. But if it's the difference between getting your project done in good time and worrying about saving every microsecond, don't do that. I think the right thing is to write the clearest code that's efficient and takes how many resources you're using into account. It's just things we need to learn to be aware of to write code that doesn't make the end user wait too long.
But then, don't you feel that like big companies like Microsoft, Google have a lot of computation, so they can train TBs of data, but that won't work for us, right? Being a person having. So, don't you think then the accuracy of things that they publish in their papers would affect a normal person using that models as well?
So if you get into things like GPT-2, which we can use, and GPT-3, which we can't, use directly, and we probably, even if they said, here it is, our machines might not be able to handle it because it's big. Even just using it
Yeah.
without training it, it's big. But the nice thing is we don't have to retrain those things. We can transfer learning, or
Yeah.
I like to say transfer teach them. We can transfer teach them, and that's huge advantage. But as Dennis points out in his book, and I'm really excited for everyone to have it in their hands, you can train a transformer on a specific task with one GPU that will outperform GPT-3 on that specific task. So again, it comes back to that earliest emphasis we made in the show. What's driving AI? Human ingenuity. But Manpreet's right. By the way, we need to kind of project manage our own code or our own projects in data science. We're not going to be good at everything, but we need to try to get better at many things, especially the things associated with our current projects. And that's one reason I really like, and it's from me, but I'm sharing it with others, my systematic Saturday posts. I'm just trying to create a model that helps me remain more cognizant about the best and fastest ways to grow and learn. That's all it's
And as
about.
Gio says, personal vision statement.
Exactly. It really, that's the model for the growing and learning. It's built on a foundation of having a good vision statement. Thank you, Manpreet. That's right.
Yeah, I think probably it's not just because we are abundant in terms of what hardware potential is, but at the end of the day, we just want to leverage every bit which just flows inside the same machine that we are trying to build. Whether it's in quantum compute at the end of the day, Google might have had announced the quantum supremacy, which might be the big boom for the quantum industry at the end of the day. But it's still not yet the benchmarks. Talking about benchmarks, there are polynomial and non-deterministic polynomial problem statement which we have seen, np hard problem, that's what we used to call it. And there are knack-pack problems, there are different amount of problem statement. Everything goes on with an influence of nature. Everything is nature today, but what's that all about that actually is, and what should be the right approach in order to solve any of the problem statement that we have today in the world? What should be that?
I guess it's first should be the business or the idea or the problem that we are.
Sorry, Manpreet, I there was a hiss noise, so I was like, okay, I was supposed to mute him or her, mute him or him, so I just like
It's
I
okay,
could
it's
not read
okay.
it.
I think it's first what is your business idea and what is your problem? Who are you targeting to? Do you have that enough data to make that problem work? If not, how will you get that data? I guess first these are the challenges to target, and how do you pre-process your data? And I guess you have pre-trained models, as Thom said. I think these are the four things that any organization, any researcher, anyone targets before making any problem.
Tom, you can give your views now.
I really loved her answer. That was perfect. This is why we're doing a course soon. Guy Sankari and I, and Manpreet's going to be one of our TAs. We're going to be doing, our community is going to be doing a class on supervised machine learning pipelines in Python. And really, you wouldn't have to use Python even if you attended the class if you knew R. But the emphasis is on when you're approaching these types of problems, there's a framework. And we'll probably have a similar course on unsupervised learning or semi-supervised learning. We'll have a different framework type class for other approaches too. But I like the way Danny Mobb puts it. You've got to remain creative as a data scientist. And a lot of times you encounter problems in your job that are nothing like the data science curriculum you've covered. But by understanding the concepts, you can begin to find some really amazingly helpful solutions.
Yeah, I just want to ask Tom, what was the actual foundation of integrated ML and AI? That was actually my actual question, because I saw it in one of your blog posts in Data Trend or something. I still don't remember that, but yeah, it's not a pretty old one. It's a very new one, but yeah, I've forgotten which was that. And that's it. I just wanted to ask you that one question on what led to the
I can
foundation of.
also tell you
Yeah,
this
yeah, I know
answer.
that. And also it really talked about your journey for seeking jobs after a while. Yeah, I just want a
Yeah,
brief insight on what was that actual journey all about.
sure. I'll give the initial history and then I'm going to pause and let Manpreet share the rest. Because when I met Manpreet and we became closer and closer, there was, I wouldn't say it was a shift, it was another fork in what we do. We're still very excited about writing the math to complete code type
Yeah.
posts, but because of the needs of our family, we just felt like, okay, we'll get back to that as soon as we can. But I was between jobs and I thought, while I'm looking for my next big thing, I don't want to appear as though I have nothing. So I started writing blog. I had no strong online presence to speak of. And so I thought, I'm going to create a blog because I like what's going on in the blog space, but I see a hole there and I want to try to fill it. And I had like TAs working on their PhDs reaching out to me and saying, that post helped me so much. And that gave me the courage to keep doing it. And so I was just diving deep, really wanting to know. I knew the concepts and that helped a lot, but I wanted to dive deep and really show the math to code. And I love to do that anyway. And then I started getting some really cool job offers and some strong interest. And I ended up taking the role, if you will, prospector. But it was at a certain point where I was working in Laramie, Wyoming, and I would come home once a month to be with my family. But it was a great situation there. And a young man from Tunisia reached out to me named Med Amin. And he needed help just trying to find an internship. I said, well, I don't really have any power, but I work for UL, and it seems like you would be close to the team in Dublin, Ireland. Maybe I could help you there. And, well, at one point, Vishwasi said, thank you, Mr. Thom. You're the only one that helps me. And I went, what? That's not right. I went, well, yeah, I'm happy to help. And then LinkedIn was telling me, you're seen as an expert in your field and many would like your help. And I went, yeah, right. But I wasn't remembering what it was like to be young and afraid and not know what the future was going to look like. And I was just familiar with what it was like to be older and not know what the future was going to look like. So, you just get used to it. And then more people started reaching out to me, and I just would help them a little bit. And they would think it was amazing the way I was talking to them, and I was helping. And I would think, what? I haven't really helped you that much at all. But what I didn't realize was just that someone took the time to treat them as an equal and help them made a huge difference. And so as I started to hear, like as Manpreet got more open with me, as she trusted me more, she'd share. And I said, I understand that. I've been through that. And here's how I learned to deal with it. We thought, oh, write a post on that, write a blog post, write a LinkedIn post. And then the more people reached out for help, and I would help them, or I'd praise a young person's post. That was so good. Good job. And that we would connect, and I would encourage them. I'd say, hey, you want to write from my blog? Because you're really good with this content. Well, before long, people were writing posts about me, and I was like, what? Oh, no. And I was getting a lot of connection requests. And then I'm going to let Manpreet pick it up from there.
The basic idea what Thom had for integrated MLAI actually means is integrating AI with mathematics. And that is the base with which he started. And when we interacted, as he knew I'm from mathematics background, he asked me if I can write a blog, and I was like, yeah, I'm also looking to write and learn things. So um, we thought that I would write something on NLP and he would explain the mathematics behind it, but it's still in process and bucket list. I don't know when will that happen. But the first blog I wrote was the 5 lessons I learned in my college life, and people actually could relate to it. And when they read that blog, they said that yeah, they could remember their college days and realize they also did this mistake. So I guess it started very organically and we never planned it. It was just how fluently we went. We talked and discussed ideas. We participated in hackathon to help. He helps me a lot in writing. I'm still in a learning phase. And whenever I write a, what do you say, a blog post, he re-edits, and I'm online seeing how it's editing, how is he making things more beautiful, and he's just awesome. So that's how we all started. It was very organic, and now we are a family so big, meeting every day on Saturday.
Yeah. I just wanted you all, if possible, to give some tips to be the best data scientist in the world. Probably to just start the journey of being the best data scientist. I think, Thom, you can start. Manpreet, you can. Manpreet, you can.
Okay, so what I think best data scientists should have is to be persistent in this approach, have the ability to do research and experiment with things. Should be keen in learning mathematics. Might be not important at start, but at end yes. Know how to code the problem optimally. Like if I learned this at work, initially when I first wrote my code, it was like 10 cells long in Jupyter book. But then my teammates and my manager taught me how do you write a code well commented, so that when me myself visit that code after 6 months or a year to make some changes with the data, I also understand what is happening, how do you use the variables well. And I guess you should keep learning, and if you make mistakes, you should understand that where you went wrong and you know how to be better and improve them, and listen to correct people's feedback and criticism.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
love that answer. That was really good. I would only add some high level stuff because Manpreet nailed it, by the way. But it's going to be hard. Even if you don't encounter any hard personalities, it's going to be hard. But you know what? I've learned things that are worth doing in life are hard. They are challenging. And so be gentle with yourself. If you find something hard to understand, you're not the only one. It's okay. Be patient with yourself. Enjoy the journey and figure out, oh, I finally figured it out. What was, what, stop. I learned this from studying reinforced learning and really hyper visualizing what my agent was learning. It's like you stop and you look back, you analyze what you'd been doing, and you try to figure out what helped me get over the final hump? What helped me get over all the humps? Okay, I will try to use that better in my next growth or learning cycle. And you just start to gain a sense, but also it takes a really sharp mind to do good data science. And if you're exhausted, you're going too hard. So get away from the computer screens and go do something fun. Take a break. Maybe eat a whole pizza. I don't know, whatever floats your boat, but get away from the computer screens and always have something to write with, but go do something fun. The way I'd learned this first was, I'm sure I learned it somewhere else, but I was really pushing the creativity in grad school when I was working on my PhD. And I'd hit a point where it's like, oh, I don't know how to solve this problem. And I'd pick up my clipboard and my pen and I'd go for a walk and dishwash without fail. I'd be about 400 yards or less from my office, and I'd have to sit down and start writing the ideas that were flooding into my mind. It was so helpful. And that cycles of becoming a great data scientist, it deals with these cycles, issues. There really is. There's a cycle. You work hard, but then you get tired. So you need to stop and rest. And you need to kind of review what you were doing and then get back to work. But it's amazing what happens to us during the rest and review, the rest and reflection periods. It's amazing what happens in our brain. I can't completely explain it. I just know it works.
thank you, Tom. Thank you, Manpreet, for this amazing session. Actually, it was a kind of a mentoring session for me, which I'll be recording and I'll be putting it on online. That's it. It's a kind of a session which I really enjoyed a lot. I think probably the best time that I've spent, I have never seen a mountain view time how it is. So I just experienced how mountain view time is all of mountain standard time is all about. Thank you so much for that. And also thank you for Manpreet staying all up at this midnight. Actually, it's 27 today. We started on the 26th and it's 27 today. Thank you, Manpreet, for such an amazing time presence that you had for my podcast today. Thank you so much,
Two,
man.
It's okay. Yeah.
two things real quick. Two things real quick. Um, I'm confessing for my daughter. This is early in her day. She stays up so late. It amazes me. And second, Vishwas, anytime you want to join us in our integrated family, you're more than welcome. Anyone listening, you can join our family. we're happy to receive. Just send either Manpreet or I connection request. Give us your Gmail, email, whatever, and we'll add you to the invite list in our Slack channel.
Yeah, importantly, add a note because it makes a difference when you're connecting to people and know that we can really or they can add value. This also I learned at integrated mentoring session. How do you connect with people? When you send them a note, it brings them a personalized feeling. Okay, yeah, that's really matters. Also, I would like to ask you before you end this, what was your key takeaways from this podcast for you?
I thought, not just building yourself, you have to build yourself as a personality when you are learning something new. That's what I think journey of Thom actually gives, because he has seen a lot. At the end of the day, he has built himself as a person who can guide at least 10 which he can reach about. And you as Manpreet, I feel okay, not just being young, it's also about being the most dynamic personality of having such a great mindset of handling such a great mountain called as Thom. Because I have seen, people screwing up because they are not disciplined enough to stay in with such kind of people, because your experience is not probably not the sum of my and Manpreet's age, Thom. But yeah, you have respected me, came to my podcast with your daughter, not a pseudo daughter, an actual adopted daughter, to my show. And I think probably I'm never going to miss these values which I've learned at this hour of time. That's for sure. Thank you so much, Manpreet, for
Yeah.
asking me that question in my podcast.
Yeah, because I think when listeners listen, they'll get some key takeaways from this. Because I also
Yeah,
host a meetups. I host meetups, so I know how important these things are for the viewers. Because there's abundant of data online. Like there's lots and lots of people interviewing, having podcasts. But if we both can make a difference in somebody's single life also, it would be very great for us, I guess.
yeah. Thank you so much. And also, Manpreet, this will be out of the recording. I just wanted to ask, if you can give me an NLP workshop for Pi and AI Bangalore chapter. It's actually a part of the computer architecture community, which focuses on deep learning hardware, which is the community which we started. I started actually because I have the interest for deep learning hardware. And Thom, I just want to confess one thing. I'll be writing a blog post in integrated ML and AI on AI accelerators. If you can give me a chance, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's
I
open for everyone.
yeah. I got to tell you, we don't do peer review. We do peer coaching, and you can ask Tina. It doesn't mean, it means that as long as you persist, your post will get published, but it's rigorous to get through our editing.
Yes, I know that. I know that. I know
We're
that.
we're very intense about you will have a GitHub repo that supports this post if you're talking about code. You will be very clear. You will cover but it's all with the sake of helping the reader maximally. And I just wanted to add one other thing. If you can record this or not, it's up to you. I want to encourage everyone who's getting started or new in their career, please don't be intimidated by the giants out there. Don't even look at me as a giant. I mean, I know, I can remember sometimes when I've been coding with one of my daughters or one of my adopted sons, they're like, whoa, no, wait, you'll get here. Don't be intimidated by my coding skills, because there's people that code better than me. There's people that can think rings of data science around me, but don't be intimidated. Just understand it's a long journey, and yeah, you're here and they're here, but you're still walking, and you got to start at a more advanced stage. So if you look at history, the next generation takes it to the next level always. But do a good job of appreciating the shoulders you're standing on, and humbly and excitedly, believing in your potential, but remaining humble, reach as high as you can. Make it good.
Yeah,
Become
but
good.
it will all happen if you keep continuously learning. and sharing and growing. Because once you get that thing, okay, I know this stuff always, then it's gone forever, I guess.
Exactly.
Because answering to your previous question about being a top data scientist, I guess, is just hypothetical. No one is at top. It's just that their experience and their learnings is more than us, and they can help us also to grow that. So it's maybe someone there, like people Andrew Ng and all, they're more better than this, and then people there are existing before them who are more better than them. So I guess it's a whole cycle that gets revolved.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't stop the recording and I can put these in the middle. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for actually giving me the time and actually giving me such a wonderful content. I think I just want to do part two, part three, part 10 if possible. Please just give me a date if possible in your free slots. I'm ready to do a podcast with you. I have a lot and lot
Mm.
of questions to answer with Thom and Manpreet Budhraja, and I think it would be useful for me and the other people also. So anytime after my
Oh,
exams,
yeah, we
after
would we can just we would be honored to just treat this as an ongoing series because you're our friend now. So why wouldn't we talk with our friend? Just a
Yeah.
conversation.
sure, sure. Thank you so much because till Feb 22nd I have my exams, so I'm packed till then. So I think probably recordings might come a little later because yeah, that is the
Okay.
that's how it is. And like part two, I just want to do part two, part three if possible. I just want to keep it as a series. And thank you
Yeah,
so much.
maybe we can have more family
Yeah,
members,
yeah. I think
Yes.
like
that's for sure.
Giovanna, Red, Zena, Tina also, and
Tina is
Louis,
already
Abdul.
done. Tina is already done. Now
It's
actually
Well,
okay,
complete to
but
me.
when you hear her perspectives to different
Yeah,
things, how is her journey from getting
yeah,
an internship? Like she's such an inspiration.
it
yeah,
would be fun if you.
yeah,
I
sure.
mean, our family is bigger than just the steward team, but the steward team is me and Guy and Manpreet, Giovanna, Tina Mary, and Zina. And Zina has her own show too. But Zina's just taking a little break right now. But it would be fun to do at least one show with all of us.
Sure, sure. I am absolutely honored to have you all. I think I'll be taking Pi and AI meet for that, and I'll be putting it on offline, no, online, so that people can also come in and hop in and ask their questions which they have. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this
Yeah,
amazing thing, and meet you all soon.
yeah, sure. And I'm also ready for a workshop, but after 14th of Feb, so let me know.
Yeah, sure, sure. I'll contact you after the 14th of Feb so that we can get the slots done. Thank you so much.
Can
Yeah.
I
Thank you
quote?
so.
I
Yes.
just want to quote one famous individual from the United States of America's past. Oh no, England's past. Tiny Tim in A Christmas Carol. God bless everyone.
Thank you for. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Think. Bye then. Then.
Thank
Yeah. Bye.
you for
Thank. Yes.
inviting us.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Vishwas.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.